In this demo, we will see how easy it is to consume a REST web service using Spring Boot. We will start off by examining a REST web service. Next, we will create a Spring Boot project to consume that web service. We will see how we can consume both the JSON and XML responses. Alright, let's get started. So this is the REST web service we had created in the earlier video, building REST-based web services with Spring Boot. Please watch that video if you need to get up to speed on how to build a REST web service using Spring Boot. So the output of that exercise was a REST-based web service. Going to the URL http localhost 8080/persons/1.json brings the JSON representation of person ID 1. Submitting http localhost 8080 persons all.json brings up all the persons, both IDs 1 and 2 in JSON format. If you remove the .json extension, it brings up the output in XML format. So, doing http localhost 8080 persons/1 will bring the representation of person ID 1 in XML format. So this is the web service we will use to demonstrate how to create a REST client. So here I have Spring Tool Suite opened up. Let me click New, choose Other, choose Spring Starter Project. Let us give it the name of Demo RC. There are plenty of frameworks to choose from. Let's choose Web over here. Let's click Next and then Finish. So here, Spring Boot creates the project for us. So here is the basic structure in place, and it has created some boilerplate code for us. For instance, here is one of the classes. Next, let us create a class to represent the person object returned by the REST web service. Let me first create a package com.model. Let's now create a class person. In order to save us some time, I'm going to copy and paste some code over here. Alright, so this is a simple POJO or plain old Java object representing a person having attributes ID, first name, last name, and age. And we have the getters and setters for them. There is a top level annotation of @XML root element, which represents its value as an XML element in an XML document. Let us also put the annotation @JSON ignore properties ignore unknown equal to true. This is from the JSON processing library to indicate that any property not bound to this type will be ignored. Let's save it. If we go to our POM file in the dependency hierarchy, we see the Jackson data binding dependency, which Spring STS pulled automatically for us since we chose the web framework. Next, let's create our class to call this REST web service. Let's create it in a package com.client to logically separate it. Let's now create a new class. Let's call it as call REST service.java. Let us annotate it with the Spring's @component annotation so that Spring can scan it. Let's import the package. Let us now create a method to call the REST web service. To save time, let me paste the method call REST service. Let us import the REST template and import the person object. Here we first use the REST template from the Spring Framework.web.client package. REST template is the central class in Spring Framework for synchronous calls by the client to access a REST web service. It makes it very easy to consume REST-based web services where the client just has to provide the URL and parameters if any, and it retrieves the results easily, managing all the HTTP connections and complexities for us. So we first create a REST template class instance. REST template equal to new REST template. Then we call the REST template dot get for object method, passing in the URL to get person ID 1, telling it the return type is of type person.class. The return result is captured by the client in the person variable of the person class. So these two lines is all you need to do to consume our REST web service. These two lines can be used in any suitable method of our application to consume the REST web service and get the results. Let us print the person's name using system.out.println. Now just to illustrate to you the results, let us have our call REST service class implement the command line runner interface. So this interface allows you to easily run any specific piece of code after the Spring application has been started. Let's import this interface. Now there is an error telling us that our class is missing the required method. We would let Spring Tool Suite generate the method for us. So this is the run method. After the Spring Boot app starts up and is done creating all the Spring beans and creating the application context, it automatically calls all the run methods of the beans implementing this interface. So let us call our call REST service method in our run method. Now let us go to our demo REST client application class which Spring STS generated for us. Let us put add component scan com.client so that Spring Framework can also scan the classes in that package in addition to the classes in the current package com.example. Let us fix the import. Let's save it. Alright, that is it. Let's run the application. Notice that since we already have another Spring Boot application, the one which is creating our REST web service, running embedded Tomcat at port 8080, this Spring Boot app fails to start its embedded Tomcat as it is also using the same port. Let us change the port by going to Source, Main, Resources, Application.Properties and putting server.port equal to 8888. Let's try again. Now the app starts and Spring Boot, after starting automatically, calls all beans implementing the command line runner interface, which calls the REST web service and then prints the person's name. So this is how easy it is to consume the REST web service. Currently, the REST web service call returns the XML format as we saw in the browser earlier. Now the web service can return a JSON format also. So let us put .json suffix so that the web service will return the JSON format. Let us stop Tomcat and run this application again. We see again the successful REST service call and extraction of results in the person object. Alright, now it's time to go and summarize what we learned. So in this tutorial, we first examined our REST web service, and then using the REST template, we consume that web service. We saw the consumption of the web service when it returns the results in both the JSON and the XML format. Along the way, we also saw the use of the command line runner interface. Thanks for watching.